Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first Talent Lens of 2025. We are so excited to start the new year with Natasha Narayan and our topic today. So we will get started. Natasha, can I have the next slide, please?
Mhm.
So, as you all know, I'm Swati Garg. I'm the founder and CEO of Melo Associates. We focus in revenue protection and expansion roles. I've been around for a little while now in the CS space and have been really recognized, and I'm very grateful for that. And we're just excited to see how the year evolves. From a personal standpoint, I love just creating things. I'm very entrepreneurial. So, if anyone ever wants to discuss anything, let me know. I'm always up for that. Um, Next slide, please. So what we do, if you don't know, we hire for revenue protection and expansion roles. So mostly we work in SaaS and tech. We are starting to work in manufacturing and healthcare, so that's really exciting. We're growing and diversifying our industry base. And we really just want to make sure that we find the mutual fit with people. So our goal is to make sure that we are putting the company and the candidate in a better place. Next slide, please. So, we're actually going through some transformation, which has been really exciting. So, basically, originally, how we helped the last few years have been full service recruitment, which a lot of you know us for. And then we have a program called On Demand Resume Services, which basically is our full service without the sourcing, where these companies are getting thousands of applications. And now we're helping them kind of streamline that. And then we also work with companies to help them find fractional leaders, so that's been really great too. But with our transformation, we actually have added many new services in November. We have strategically broken up the whole full search process and thought about how we can help internal teams, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So these are all our new services. We are so excited. We just launched them in November. So it's really a breakdown of auditing your job description and your interview processes, doing active sourcing if you just need that. We are doing some consulting, and a new program that we're really pumped about is helping companies move internal talent to open roles, right? So we really want to make sure that we're pushing the look internal first before you go external. So we're really excited about that too. So if any of this feels appealing to you, let me know. We can chat. So we are so excited about today. I met Natasha actually last year at Gainsight Pulse when I was speaking, and she was actually introducing me, which was so funny. And I'm so glad the tables are turned, and I'm so honored to have her here today. Natasha and Iceberg IQ is also a partner of ours. The team has been amazing, and we're just really excited to do good work together. And I will let her kind of talk about the topic, but it is kind of a unique webinar today. I'm actually going to be interviewed, where I know, and we will still have the fireside chat and the QA portion at the end. But along with her insights, we're actually going to show you how it's done. And so Natasha is going to talk more about the topic and what we're doing today. But thank you so much for being here, Natasha. And we're just so excited about today. So thank you.
Thanks, Swati. So as mentioned, name's Natasha Narayan. Really excited about this opportunity. We've been talking about this webinar for a few weeks, so stoked. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada, as we mentioned at the top of the call, but I have experience working in Australia for 10 years. And in there, when I was in Australia, I was also covering the New Zealand market. I've worked in the US a bit, Canada, and showing my age a little bit, but I started in software and technology back in 94, 95. So many years of experience in those days selling on-prem solutions as well as SaaS. So I've been through that whole journey of the legacy on-prem systems back in the day where we didn't have subscriptions or renewals like we do today, and that and the expansion motion as much. So 25 plus years. I've been the founder of Iceberg IQ. We founded the company in 2019, just pre-COVID, actually. And for those of you who are on the call that might be familiar with a company called Eigenworks, Eigenworks was around for about 10 years, and their primary purpose for the market was providing win-loss services. So for B2B software companies, they would help companies understand how to win more business or why they were losing business or why customers were churning. Very heavily focused on the qualitative research side, meaning the deep dive interviews. Alan Armstrong, who was the founder of Eigenworks, actually passed away in 2019. I was a client when I was at Gainsight, and I couldn't believe that after 10 years, this company was just poof, going to vanish. They were shutting it down. So I ended up starting it up again as Iceberg with a couple of people from the team. And we have a number of, so Julie and Chris are my co-founders, and we have a number of people that came from Eigenworks and hired some new. And that we have the same mission. So we're helping B2B software companies really understand their market and their buyers and their customers better. So that's what we do. We do the hard work of booking these interviews with your customers and your prospects. We conduct the interviews through a very conversational approach, which I'll go through today. And then we turn those insights into material or information that could then drive growth for you. So we code all of the insights in a system called Airtable. We build presentations. We present them back to the executive team. But it's really an ongoing journey of learning how your buyers and customers are really making these decisions so that it can inform your go-to-market strategy and continuous strategy. And the skilled conversational interviews are a big part of what we do. Consider them more semi-structured. So we know the focus areas, we know the hypotheses of what's going on. We understand the overall project objectives, but in no way are we scripted where we have, X number of questions that we're just running through on every call. And that also allows the ability to have some more free flow. So if a interviewee starts moving in a certain direction, you can dig deeper and follow where they want to go in that trail. So we find that elicits much more deeper, rich insights. So what we'll discuss today, talk about how Melo Associates is evolving to meet industry needs, practical tips to become a better interviewer and active listener, and how deep insights drive better business decisions. Great. So at this point, we'll transition over to the interview itself. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see Swati's screen and mine. And yeah, we're going to try something different today. So we'll just go through a flow where I'm interviewing Swati versus the other way around. And I'll use some of the techniques that we typically use when we're conducting interviews so you can get a sense of it. She and I will have a little bit of a debrief afterwards on how that experience was for her. And I'll share some of the tips that I used. But yeah, why don't we get started? So Swati, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'd love to start if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of history and an overview of Melo. It'd be great to understand the background of the organization. You shared a little bit about what you do today, but maybe just an overview of Melo as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So, I actually accidentally opened up Melo Associates, which I think a lot of people don't know. I was freelancing while looking for a position. And so I hadn't explored, I just left my recruiting agency and I hadn't explored the tech and startup space. So I was just excited to learn more about it. And I started networking every day. So I made networking a full-time job. So I did that every day. I went to an event every day. And I got my first client within a month of networking. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to part-time freelance while I look for a job. And so, and then I got another client because I had an HR background. And so I knew a lot of people in this space. And they're like, oh, can you help me out with all the different things? I did engineering, I did marketing, I did sales, IT. So things just kind of naturally were evolving. And I was looking for roles and honestly not loving everything. And I was like, this is awesome. I've never thought about starting my own company or working for my own, but I was making good money and I was very disciplined. And it was just such a cool experience that 6 months into freelancing part-time, I went full-time. And it was awesome. So since then, I just was like Swati Garg Consulting, and I didn't have a website or anything. I just did word of mouth, and I just traveled and worked for a couple of years, and it was really fun. And then a year into freelancing, I got my first customer success client, which was amazing. And I was like, oh wow, this is what I want to niche in. I love the balance of like being technical and customer facing. And so I niched into that. And then I was like, I need to get serious. I need to brand. So we branded Melo Associates. And the way, do you want to learn about the name too? I know a
Yeah,
lot
I'd
of
love
people ask
to.
me about that.
Yeah.
So the name is really interesting because I could not figure out a name for the life of me. And I had like a brand designer help me with like the branding and stuff, and she also helped me with the name. And we found Milo, and I didn't want it to be named after my name, but I love Milo because there's a Milo pearl that is an extremely rare pearl. It's really beautiful orange and a little harder to find, and a pearl is my birthstone. So I loved the connection to me, but also like what a pearl stands for. So that was like really, really fun. And yeah, so we grew into like really focusing in customer success. I really embedded into the community and like loved the people and the connections I made. And then as CS was changing, we've evolved and changed as well.
So it sounds like there's a couple of tipping points, right? There was the one where you decided, okay, I really need to brand. And
Yeah.
then now with this, which we'll get into your current, evolving direction. I'm curious about when you decided, okay, I need to brand this company now. I can no longer be, just Swati Garg. What was happening for the business at that time that made you realize, okay, now is the time I need to become, get a website, all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of I guess mentors. I didn't have a ton of mentors at that time that taught me how to do business or how to grow a business, right? I didn't have a lot of examples. And so as I was networking and obviously trying to get clients, I actually had someone just straight up told me, they were like, you really need a website so I can refer you. And that's when this was like 2 years, and I made my first very preliminary website. I think it was called recruitwithsg.com. And it was just the most basic website that a friend helped me with. But I was like, my LinkedIn wasn't good enough. I needed a digital presence. And then from and I did that for maybe 6 months or a year. And then I was like, okay, I like, we were growing and I just wanted to feel more official. And then we LLC'd and all of that stuff too, right? So I LLC'd in 2019 and I started, I guess working in 2016 fall. So 3 years to like get to that name and LLC period. But it really
Yeah.
was someone just telling me, right? I think I didn't have I was younger. I was just kind of started it on a whim, right? So everything was very organic and slow. And so it was really just someone being like, you need to do this so you can get more business and you can grow. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay, like, and then, when I talk to people and I'm like, they're like, you had no website for 2 years. And I know today's age or now that's insane because that's like the first peep thing somebody does. But I don't have a technical background. So doing a website wasn't even on my mind. And until like literally one of my friends who was like a marketer helped me with like I think it was like WordPress, like a very basic WordPress site. And it was amazing. I was like, this is amazing. I thought it was like the best thing in the world. I was like mind blown, right? But I think it's just kind of where I came from. I just had no idea. So I think it was like sometimes you just need someone to tell you the hard truth. And I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, even think about that with the parallels with customer success, right? If you've got you land them, you work with them, they expand, and then the ultimate is then when your customers are referring for you, and that's growing your business. So by having that website out there, that presence, you're allowing your business to grow organically through those referrals. Yeah. And it also makes me think of Pulse because we didn't have a booth at Pulse. We had the Innovation Theater, but some people were saying to us, like, where's your booth? I want to be able to, I've been trying to send people to your booth. And it just feels very similar. Like, oh, you need that place for other people to just know that they can go to that website or that
Exactly.
booth. Yeah. Cool. So maybe we could transition into your new business direction. I'd love to hear kind of what led up to it. Maybe we could start there and yeah, what it's all about.
Sure. So, I mean, I think a lot of people know the last couple years in SaaS and tech has been challenging for a easy phrase, easy word to say. And we felt it. We felt it. I mean, we're very committed to the community and the work, and we love the space. And because of all the challenges, CS has been evolving. It's been evolving like rapid fire. Titles are changing, responsibilities are changing, org structures are changing, like everything's changing. And so, it was one of the things is we do the whole CS umbrella. So we do success, professional services, support, all of that. But people just kept hearing success. So part of like one of the things was that sometimes people would be like, "Oh, you only do customer success." And I was like, "Well, no, that's no, we do the entire umbrella." And it was just, and it was the titles were changing so fast and everything was just changing so fast. So one of the big things we wanted to do was kind of find a new phrase or a new um basically way to describe what we do. And that's kind of where revenue protection and expansion came from. And it's very intentional to explain really the value of the roles we work on and our commitment to the space, right? So as we just needed to change with CS, I basically is really it. And then the other big thing is we're known for search, right? We're very, very good at search. But we found that our clients needed help throughout like different stages of the process. And at that and last year we weren't structured for that. We didn't think through that. We weren't structured for that. And so that's what we really did is we basically build out a whole product suite. And we're like, okay, we do these three things, but now here we have the entire breakdown where we can help an internal team or a hiring manager at every part of the process. And we just feel much more holistic, which is now why we call ourselves the ultimate hiring hub, right? Because we're not a normal recruiting firm anymore, because a firm would not have all of these services. So it's been a really, really exciting evolvement time because we've moved away from being a traditional recruiting firm to just really being like having a lot of hiring services. We're evolving with our function in our industry. Like it just felt like the right time because in order to serve our customers and to be honest, to grow and stay alive as a company, you need to constantly change, right? They say the only thing constant is change, and I know that's cliche, but it's so true. And so it was time for us to make that change.
Great, thank you. And I'm curious about AI specifically, then, over a couple of years now where AI has really evolved. And you mentioned earlier on about companies are getting thousands of
Mhm.
applicants sometimes. Like, how much did that influence that particular service or any of this direction for you at all?
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't embedded AI yet in our services yet, but we are looking at that. We are looking at how to build tech into our service. Like I said, as we are evolving as the industry is evolving, right? So, nothing as of now. A lot of our stuff is manual, but I think that's where I think we can help the most, right? Because our clients need bandwidth and they need time, and we'll take that and we will add value in that way. So a lot of it is manual right now, but we are looking at ways to incorporate AI. I mean, obviously we use all the things that everyone else uses, like Gemini and ChatGPT and all of that to make other parts of our job faster. But when it comes to like search, a lot of it is manual right now, unless the AI is embedded in the softwares we're using.
Okay, great. Um, the vision for the new business direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your
So,
vision?
I mean, the vision is constantly evolving.
Mhm.
We really want to make sure that we are helping our customers and our future customers with whatever they need in our space, right? So we want to continue to be the leaders in our space. So our biggest change, like I said, is the revenue protection and expansion and like really just expanding what our wheelhouse is. So, and I don't know if that's going to constantly evolve, but I think right now we really just want to make sure that we are helping clients find really good people that are consultative and technical. And what that means from a title and function perspective, I think will consistently evolve. So we'll have to evolve with it. And I think you kind of nailed it with AI. We do want to have um, some incorporate technology in our day to day in the future. So that's really what this year is about. It's really about seeing how the industry and our function evolves and how we can kind of build technology to help our customers but and ourselves. So those are really the two big things that we're focusing on this year.
Okay, great. And I love how it's all evolving based on client demand and customer needs as well. I'm curious about how you Like it's your company, right? But the whole decision process, did you own this completely, or did you work with a team or an external vendor at all as you were evaluating all of these different new services you could provide and having to prioritize and then actually move forward with them?
Yeah, so to be honest, I didn't know how I wanted to evolve, but I know we needed to evolve last year. So I actually did a business program. It was a 12-week business program that I'll actually probably talk about later this week. And it was all about growing and scaling your services business. And as I said, I never really got that formal training. So it was just a really good way for me to be around people and learn from people and think outside the box and figure out what our gaps were. And so part of it was I knew we needed to evolve, but I think the program really helped me like get creative. And then obviously there were a ton of brainstorming sessions with my team trying to figure out like what that looks like and what that could be and what would be possible based on our like bandwidth and like all of the things that we want to continue doing to grow the business. So I didn't really use any external vendors or anything like that, but my business program really did help me just think through things and get more creative. And then internal team, just a lot of brainstorming and things like that. I tend to I don't know. I tend to just like sit with things and then it just like I was like, we need to do this now. Like it was like a very quick, like we did our turnaround in 3 months, which is
Wow.
which is pretty fast, I would say. And it felt really good. We were like, we're ready. And as soon as like I saw the vision, I was like, let's implement this right now. So it's really exciting.
Mhm. And I know as a owner of a services company, how hard that can be, right? You're in a bit of a vacuum at times, and how important it is to have that those people out there in that network that you can reach out to and learn from. Were in that program, were they also in the same industry, or were they across different industries,
All
your
different
services companies?
industries.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
all different industries and different stages too. So there were people that were just starting their business to people that were more established like myself too. So it was really just cool to see how people were thinking about their business and just it gives you, it keeps you like entrepreneurial when you're like in that space. That's been really
Hmm. Oh, that's awesome. So great investment, it sounds like.
great investment. Yep.
Did you go into that program knowing that you were going to evolve?
I I went in, yeah, basically I went in knowing I wanted to evolve, but I wasn't exactly sure how to structure
Hmm.
it. So I think every week I was getting more and more clarity until like a month in, I was like, okay, I got this. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you consider any other options? So I guess I'm curious about this, maybe the business program, we could start there. But did you evaluate any alternatives to that in terms of coaching or mentoring or other programs at all?
Nope, I didn't. I didn't.
Hmm.
It was someone I knew that was starting. It was their first cohort, and it was the person who was doing it. I've known. She's a founder of a marketing exec firm, and she exited, and this was her first cohort, and I was just really excited about what she was saying and what she wanted to do, and I kind of just jumped in.
Yeah, that's great. And then for the options of the services that you were providing, was there any, like, did you lay out a few different options that you had to decide at all, or was it pretty much once you landed on those that you knew it was just let's roll with all of these?
They evolved, right? I think we had like an initial slate, and then we had to like restructure them, figure out what it means, like what we're delivering. This was like actual deliverables for a lot of all of historically our deliverable is a person. And these are actual deliverables that are also just not people, right? They're different parts of the service. So they could be profiles, it could be research, it could be, audits. Like there's very different deliverables. So there's definitely a lot to think through. And there was definitely like a lot of iterations because it's just not what we've done for a long time. And it's not that I don't know how to do this, it's just not what we've delivered. And so even just changing the way I think about that took a minute.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so you talked a little bit about the market earlier and how it's evolved, and anything else around that, just the market conditions or the market changes and how that influenced your decision at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was when things are challenging and I've talked about this to a lot of people, like you either evolve or you die, right? Like you have to you have to evolve when the market tells you that things are changing. And so, yes, the market was a huge indicator. I mean, if everything was going like as good as it was, um, I don't think you think about it sometimes because you're just so busy. And I think that there was quieter moments, and I think it gives you time to think and gives you time to like be like, okay, how do I want to grow this? Is this how I want things to just be? And I do think that during those challenging times, you grow the most. And
Mhm.
it's painful growth and it's hard and it's, challenging, but I do think that you grow the most. And I'm really thankful now that I'm on the other side.
Yeah, great. How do you plan to launch it?
So we did. We launched it in the fall. We did a big launch on social media. And then a lot of it, it's just been honestly, it's been talking to our clients and our newsletter and things like that. I think when you have we launched a lot of new services, and I think when you launch a lot of new services, it's just constantly educating. So it's kind of like, hey, it's live, and then it's just constantly educating, right? I don't think it's like it's just live and then you don't have to do anything ever again.
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's launched. We launched it in November, but it's just constant educating until our current clients and future clients, see us more holistically versus just our original search, which is what we've done.
Mhm. And then you traveled quite a bit over the last year, right? Over 2024, different
Yeah.
conferences. Yeah, I felt
Yeah.
like I was always catching you, seeing you on a plane somewhere. So is that the plan this year too, as you launch these new services and get them out in the market, or do you have a sense of, yeah, what this year looks like for you?
I think we're still trying to figure that out. I think I probably will travel a little bit less. At least that's the plan right now. And then I think that was the plan last year too, and it completely changed. So I've been to almost all of the conferences now, and so I think it's just time to really think about, where we've been able to make the most impact, where we've connected with the most people, whose content we've absorbed the most. So there's just I guess some evaluation that we have to do because it is just a lot of energy, like traveling all over the country. But it's one of my favorite parts, which is why I get sucked in because there's so much community and so much friendship and like love when you go to these conferences because you only get to see these people like once a year or twice a year at the most. And so it's a lot of fun, right? So still trying to figure out what our schedule looks like, but I think that there is a balance between like a lot of fun and like, business impact that we just have to figure out.
Yeah. And then is your community largely the customer success community, or do you think with this evolution that there will be other groups or industries or like
Yeah.
conferences that, yeah.
I mean, I think it's growing, it's evolving. So we do a lot with the customer success community. Obviously, we started doing stuff with the professional services community last year, and I think we're going to do more with like just like revenue roles and community this year. So it is evolving and growing, and that part's really fun.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else that comes to mind for you?
No, this has been such an interesting experience. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear your debrief. I have not been interviewed like this, I think, specifically like with the way you did it and the way your approach, in a very long time or ever. So I'm very excited to hear about it, but no, nothing else.
Okay, great. Well, in that case, I'll just go back to screen sharing. Bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, so interviewing techniques. Some of these I used, you would have observed open-ended questions. So really trying to get the interviewee into storytelling mode and not making assumptions and more biased questions, but open-ended. So not assuming anything. As I mentioned, getting them into storytelling mode. I'll share a little bit about this later in a different slide, but it's really important for us, especially when we're uh, dissecting a decision like a win or a loss or a churn, getting them to really open up and going into full storytelling mode about, how that all played out. Mirroring, I don't actually know if I did that today, but mirroring would be repeating the last few words that they said. Playing back would be recapping what they said to you. Pausing is a very challenging skill, I think, for a lot of people, myself included, but really holding that space and not saying anything. I did catch myself once in that interview saying, mm-hmm, but it's really important. It's easier on video because you can see each other, but even we do a lot of Zoom calls that are just audio. But we've learned that if you make sounds like mm-hmm, it can sometimes indicate to the interviewee that you're waiting to speak, you're trying to jump in. So it's actually way more powerful to just not say anything. And it also allows them the comfortability because everyone speaks, everyone has a different style of speaking or comfort level around sharing. And the more space you can hold for them, sometimes people just need more time to get their thoughts together and collect what they're going to say and then be able to articulate them. Time management is really important. So making sure that you're on time. But if you can see, maybe you're realizing through the interview that the interviewee is somebody that can tend to share a lot. It can be sometimes important to then just rein it back in a little bit or say, we're usually doing 30-minute interviews, right? And if I can tell that I'm already 15 minutes in, but we're still in sort of the first portion where I'm really discovering who they are, what their company is all about. I might say, okay, I know we have 15 minutes, but there's a bunch of questions I want to get through. Do you mind? And then do you mind if we pivot a little bit? Or sometimes if we're say 25 minutes in and okay, now I have 5 minutes left to get through all of this stuff, asking them, okay, I know we have 5 minutes. I have 6 questions left or some things I'd like to ask you. Do you mind if we go over? And if they say no, just getting that permission if you need a little bit more time or making sure that they're aware that, okay, you've got a bunch of stuff you need to get through. I also leave the door open with every interviewee. So we as an organization have worked with hundreds of companies, done thousands of interviews. But sometimes it's tough, right? You're representing this client, you want to know everything you can, but maybe you've missed something. I'll always leave the door open at the end of the interview where we're asking if we can come back to them with some more questions or to set up a quick follow-up call, just so that if you do end up reaching out to them after, maybe a week later as you're going over your notes, that they're expecting that and it's not a surprise for them. It also is a good way to establish a relationship with someone as well. I'm very, very big on networking and referral-based businesses. Most, if not all of our business is based on inbound referrals and, through partners, through former customers, through existing customers. So you never know what can come out of building that ongoing relationship with someone. And offering that final opportunity to share. In this case with Swati, she didn't actually have anything to share, but we do find that you're asking all of your questions and you're going through it and getting them into storytelling mode, but then just offering that opportunity. Is there anything else that you think would be important for me to know? Is there anything else that you'd like to share? I'm surprised. I'd say probably 20% of the time they say, actually, yes, there is. There's something we didn't cover. And it's something that you might have not even thought about. The client might not even thought about when you've gone into the study with them and done all the preparation. And I find that those sometimes are the most powerful component or piece of feedback in the actual interview. Great. Swati, any thoughts on how that, I think you're off video at the moment, but on how that whole experience was for you? You mentioned that it was different to be on the other side.
Yeah, it was great. And I actually did want to say something, at the end when it was like, do you have anything else to share? I think the purpose of the interview matters a lot. Right. So I think today's purpose was obviously highlighting this, but also talking about like what we've been doing at Melo Associates. And I do think most of the questions cover that. So I didn't have anything to say. But I normally do. So I agree with you. I think I normally would. And just be like, I want to really emphasize this point or this or that. So I love that you said that. It was great. I mean, it actually made me think about how I'm telling the story about how we're evolving and how I'm sharing what we've been doing. So I think it was really good insight for me as like the interviewee. So I really appreciate it. It was fun. And like I said, I haven't, since it's so new, the launch just happened a couple of months ago. I haven't had a chance to really dig in like this. So for me, it was just really good timing too to be able to talk about it this way. So I really enjoyed explaining my thought process on what and why we did what we did.
Wonderful. It's interesting. We find that in interviews sometimes too, where they say, "Oh, wow, it's really been like a retrospective for me to reflect on that whole process or that time," or, "Oh, yeah, think about all of the steps or the decisions that happened, um, or all of the things I had to evaluate to come to that conclusion." So, yeah,
Exactly.
I'm glad that it was able to be a way for you to reflect on kind of what's happened and also think about honing your pitch as well
Yeah.
and just practice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
What I didn't do is summarize, and we don't actually have that as one of the list items here, but usually, because if we're evaluating a decision, we'll provide all of the factors that we were able to uncover and play them back to the interviewee. And that way, it's a way of saying, "Oh, okay, my understanding is that you did this, you largely saw this from the market conditions that have been evolving over the last little while. You looked at what your clients were asking for and then decided to put this together. You did this 12-week business program, which really helped you distill and come to a conclusion on what was important as you went to launch this. And then as you play all that back, you can say, did I get that? Was that correct? Or did I summarize that correctly? Or did I miss anything? And then it allows the interviewee to say, oh, actually, yeah, no, that's great. Or no, yeah, but I also feel like this other factor was really important that you didn't cover. So it's a good way to just recap our understanding. And sometimes it's helpful to actually stack rank those factors as well, especially when it's a decision, in our case, for a win or a loss, because then we can determine the importance of something. Okay, is the ROI like the number one reason, or was it the functional fit, or was it the pricing, or what features, that a certain vendor had to offer. So you can start to determine, okay, so maybe pricing wasn't that big of a deal, and then it's possible that there was a gap on the table where they would have actually paid more. And so it allows you to go deeper into those conversations too. Maybe not with that interview, but other ones. So the buyer's hero, actually, before I move on, Swati, anything else that you'd like to share or you think would be helpful for us to discuss about the technique or the interview itself before we move on?
Um, I really liked the probing questions. I think that was really great. So just so everyone knows, yes, we had some questions, but a lot of what Natasha also asked was just like follow-up questions and probing questions that we didn't talk about, and I like them. I think they got me to dig in a little deeper, and I think the retrospective thing is correct. I don't think I've thought about every step that kind of made us make that change. And I think that makes it a stronger story as I continue to think about it. So yeah, it was great. I really appreciated it. Thank you.
Right. Awesome. So the buyer's hero methodology, this is something that Alan, my predecessor, had developed way back, and it was based on Joseph Campbell, the author's concept of the hero's journey. So in our case, when we're interviewing a decision maker at a company about why they chose our client, a software company or a competitor, we see them as this hero on this journey, setting out to achieve something, right? They have a vision of what they want, and they go out and they evaluate all these options, and there's all these twists and turns, because sometimes with and we're doing a lot of more complex deal decision evaluations, right? It could be months that they take and multiple people that are involved. But we really see that initial champion as somebody that's out there on this journey trying to achieve something, and they come out different. They're different at the end. So we spend time in the beginning really profiling them. And you would have noticed I asked Swati up front, like, can you tell me an overview, or can you share an overview of Melo? So we usually start with that with the interviews. We ask them to share an overview about the company and the history. We find that gets them more into that storytelling mode. It's a bit of an easier way versus asking them about themselves straight out. And then we go into their role and their responsibilities, and the function that they have, what the team looks like, the org structure. Then we'll move into the vision for change. So what were they setting out to achieve? What did they want the end state to look at? The business goals, the success criteria. How is it different to what they were doing today? So what were they using today, even if it's just spreadsheets or nothing, and really helping to quantify and uncover what that current state is and that desired future state. We're getting them into storytelling mode, and so we're asking what if questions and digging deeper and what about. And you saw a little bit of that with Swati today, where I was trying to dig a little bit deeper as she was sharing. digging and confirming, and trying not to be assumptive. Today, because it was more of a shared experience, I imparted a bit of my knowledge or my experience and how it related. But we usually don't do that in interviews. We really want to have the floor completely for that interviewee and their experience, not impart or bias any of our own knowledge, especially because, we're working with a number of software companies. There's definitely knowledge that we have from one that can translate to the other, but we never really want to impart that. And usually at the end, we'll ask a what if question. So what if the pricing was the same? Or you mentioned that you had done this whole evaluation and these particular features were most important for you. But what if this particular feature was stronger in this other vendor? Would that have changed the outcome for you? So we're really testing the factors and the decision to see if the strength is there, or if this particular variable or factor was different, would it have changed the outcome? And we find that that's a good way as we're prioritizing all of the reasons that they made a decision, whether it was a really strong factor or not. So that's the methodology. This applies strongly in the win-loss interviews that we're doing when you're changing into something new that you're acquiring that maybe you did or didn't have something already in place. Or you're switching from another vendor. We also do 50% of our practice is churn interviews. And in those cases, it's much more about the actual experience. So, what were they originally setting out to achieve when they first bought the software, which might have been a year ago, it might have been many years ago, and how did that change over time? So, what were they originally setting out to achieve? What was that whole process like from sales to onboarding? The transition, then the onboarding experience, then that whole, I'm speaking in customer success language. So what was that whole adoption experience like? The rollout, the education, needing to rely on the vendor versus being able to do it in-house, the resource requirements, what the support was like, what the engagement model was like with CS. Were they able to expand the relationship at all? And then in churn cases, what ultimately led to the churn? Like, where did things first start to go wrong? What ultimately was the reason that they left and why? And also, who did they go to and why? So we uncover some competitive intelligence through that as well for the client to understand what the gaps might be. So I gave a few of these examples already, but you gave us a big discount. We would have paid full price. We do sometimes hear that where we find out that there was, money left on the table. We wanted to choose you, but then a certain thing happened, like maybe something shifted with the organization or they were acquired, or, a new decision maker came in. Your sales team talked a lot about these particular features, but it actually wasn't what we cared about. So we find that we're really helping to uncover what the messaging should be based on what the prospects or the buyers feel is really important. And another one, the thing you think that differentiates you, it actually doesn't. And because the markets are always evolving, especially in a SaaS model, features are always changing. So what was relevant today wasn't relevant, 2 years ago as an example. So what's important and differentiators are always evolving as well. And then what we provide drives better decisions, we find. So we're sometimes doing a one-time study, or it's an ongoing program of X number of interviews every quarter or every year. Or sometimes clients will just buy a study of, say, 10 interviews. We'll present the findings back. They're getting the reports all along the way. And then when those complete, they then buy another batch of 10. But it's really important to make sure that these insights are not only just getting to, say, product marketing or customer success. These benefit the entire organization. So it really drives this culture of accountability and transparency and learning. And often the CEO is directly involved. They might have a sense of what's going on, or maybe they want to validate some things. The customer success team obviously benefits, but maybe customer success, they're usually the voice of the customer. So maybe that they need to hold product more accountable, or be able to give this feedback to product about what the roadmap gaps might be, or what the competitors are doing, or how sales could be setting the customer up better during the sales process for a better implementation. Or what needs to happen, like how QBRs need to be improved, or what other vendors might be doing in their customer success engagements. We find sometimes we're hearing that CS is getting involved in the sales journey. It might not be the exact CSM, but there's someone that's being represented in that the sales experience from customer success. So the client can actually get a feel for what that CS experience will be. Obviously, product marketing benefit, and sales and rev ops as well. Great. So before we move to the fireside chat section, we have 12 minutes left here. We do have some handouts, so we'll share this out in the follow-up email. A few podcasts that we've been interviewed on. You might find that there's an overlap from what we shared today, but it's also a great way to hear specifically around best practices or how to run a program. We have a printable handout, so you can print it out and fold it up in a little card that you can keep on your desk with just some interviewing tips or how to become a better listener. These communication skills are not only to benefit, obviously, your work life, but hopefully in your personal life as well, being able to really hold space for the people that are near and dear to you, or even just people that you're meeting on a personal basis. We have a pragmatic magazine article, the one pager for sales teams. So sometimes sales are trying to understand how this can really benefit them. And I've been in that, like I was a sales rep at Gainsight, and there were countless times where I would get these reports from Eigenworks and all of this rich data about what the buyer experience was or how they felt about why they didn't choose you or why they chose a competitor. And it actually did help me personally go back to the prospect. And sometimes the deal was still stuck or out there and be able to close that deal or learn for other companies that had the same sort of fit. It could have been the same industry or same overall requirements, or maybe same size or where they were in their journey. And then we did have a video at Pulse that we had a customer quote from Nick, the CEO of Gainsight. And so that's we posted that video here as well. Great. So I think we're going to move into the Q&A section now.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Natasha. This was amazing. So I have a couple questions and then I want to ask you first, but if anybody has any questions, this is the time to throw it in the Q&A chat and we'll make sure to answer them. So my first question for you, Natasha, is how did you first discover your passion for helping companies uncover critical insights through interviews? It's such a unique thing to do. So I'm so curious on why you decided to move into that co-founder capacity and do this.
Yeah, so I think I've always been pretty social. Like I've always liked having friends in different circles, even way back before I started working. And I think being in sales for so long, which was most of my career, you're naturally interviewing anyway, right? You're constantly in discovery mode. My approach was always doing deep discovery, figuring out what was important to the customer or the prospect, and then helping them achieve that. And I found that over time, it's so gratifying because if you can, if you can find these win-win outcomes, and also for long-term relationships, because a lot of my clients, you end up helping them get roles into their next company. That's happened a number of times, but also just, yeah, long-term relationships, I feel like is how I got there. I also was a homeopath. I took a few years departure during my tech career. And in those cases, it's a form of alternative medicine, but it requires very, very deep discovery, like 90-minute conversations where you're learning everything about a person from their childhood, how they experience things. And I won't go into too much detail about that, but I feel like all of that,
Wow.
it was all the same. It was all the same. You're interviewing, you're going into storytelling mode, you're holding space for people. And so when Alan passed away, I wasn't expecting to be a CEO. I certainly wasn't expecting to do this type of work. I'd always worked in software companies. I'd sold services, but I'd never run a services company before. It was just by chance this had happened. I was in the process of looking for my next, move. But I knew I wanted to work with tech companies. I knew I wanted to make an impact. So not massive organizations, like organizations that were say 20 to 500 million. I knew I loved the discovery and the relationship that you build with these customers by learning more about them. And so it all just happened very organically and it was very serendipitous when it all came about.
That's amazing. Another accidental CEO.
Yeah, totally.
I love that. That's amazing. Well, what advice would you give to leaders who want to improve their interviewing skills to build stronger customer relationships or team dynamics?
Yeah. I would say practicing these skills, practicing them in your home life, in your personal life, as well as professionally. I think it can be very easy to assume what's going on. And I learned this at Gainsight, actually. One of their core values is Shoshin, so having a beginner's mind. And they do that in everything that they do. So really approaching those conversations for leaders with your team members, with your customers, with your peers, of just not making assumptions and really just coming from a place of learning and almost with a fresh blank slate in your mind. And I don't know for those who are on the call that meditate as well. I do a lot of meditation. I'm really into Buddhism and one of my teachers was giving that analogy of you think of like a clear sky and maybe there's clouds, but you're imagining these clouds moving away and then the clear sky again. And so I think just using the techniques that we discussed, like mirroring, playing back, holding space, pausing. And it takes time, right? It's like we're in this world where everything's so rushed and we're in a million meetings a day and we're letting AI drive all the repetitive tasks for us. But I feel like nothing can replace the experience of holding that space to have a conversation with someone and building that relationship. So for leaders, I'd say just try to continue to do that whenever you can.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Um, can you share like an example of a particularly challenging interview or insight gathering session and like how you navigated it?
Yeah, it's funny because when I saw that question in the prep as maybe it would come up, it was actually something that happened recently in the last few weeks where I did share the feedback with the client in their readout. I jumped on a call with a company. So this is we don't really disclose who we work with
Of
generally unless
course.
they give executive permission, but this was in the a manufacturing global trade space, shall we say, and it was interviewing a clothing manufacturer, a procurement person, and he was really challenging, like wouldn't give me anything. For the first 10 minutes or so, I was wondering why he even took the call. And it got to the point where I was finding I was providing answers for him, which I wouldn't do, but it was a way of just nudging things along to try to extract information about what had happened. And then he resisted even more, like, oh, those are your words, Natasha, not my words. And then something shifted about halfway where I started offering what we've seen with other clients in these interviews. And I think maybe he just suddenly realized this is a human to human interaction. And this person has knowledge and she's really trying to do the best thing by her client. Like that's ultimately why we're here. She does have some experience. And everything suddenly shifted at that point. And he started opening up that, maybe we rushed the decision. I treated this as a commodity. I treated all the vendors I evaluated as a commodity. And maybe I wasn't an educated buyer and realized that there were capabilities that would have differentiated your client. And he did end up sharing a lot more about how they could have changed their approach, even with the pricing conversations and why he chose another vendor. And in the end, he was actually apologetic because I had said, oh, so did you get a chance to give this feedback? And he said, no. And in the very end, he actually was very apologetic that he didn't take the time to speak to the vendor, to my client directly to offer this feedback. And that was the purpose of our call, so it was fine. But it was just interesting, right? It's like sometimes you're just trying different things, and then eventually they don't always get there. I think for the most part they do, but that was just a recent one where,
No,
yeah,
that's
it was like a bit of
amazing.
a dance. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think when things when the conversation evolves, we do something similar. We call it our deep dive when we start working on a new search, and we have like an hour call with really the hiring team and definitely the hiring manager and ask them very similar questions, open-ended questions, a lot of probing, follow-up. And sometimes it does change, right? The flow changes as they open more up and they understand like what we're trying to do too, right? Like it does change. So I totally see that. We actually just got a question. So can you talk a little more about the balance between doing a structured interview versus being flexible? Oh, I love that.
hmm So I talked a little bit about this earlier, and I realize we only have a few minutes left, so I'll speak a little faster like I normally do.
It's
But
totally fine.
so we come up with a list of focus areas and then the hypotheses of what the client thinks is might be going on. But we don't go in with that bias with those hypotheses in mind. Like we're not leading to that. And we just find that that allows a much more of a flow of going where the interviewee wants to go versus a list of questions like a survey type style. Because by doing a survey type style, you can do that as well. We offer those and maybe as a follow up sometimes if there's thousands of people that you need to reach and you're doing those interviews up front. But we just find that having those areas allows you to dig deeper and flow where the interviewee wants to go as well, and you end up getting much more rich in-depth insights that way, and really powerful, detailed quotes. And again, these are feel like more relevant in the larger, more complex deals where you are looking for trends and themes, but each deal matters so much. Yeah, so we just find it tends to work quite well.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, but Natasha, thank you so much. This was a really cool experience for me. And I really liked, normally when we talk about interviewing, we're talking about the search process. And I think that seeing interviewing in a different lens of more of a skill set in the CS role, I think was super, super interesting. I really appreciate your insights and really the tips that you've given our audience today, but also I appreciate the experience I got to have and it was really helpful to me. So thank you so much for being here today and for prepping and just being a really good partner in general. I really appreciate you and the
Thank you,
team.
Swati. Well, I'm excited to see how this evolves for you. Maybe we'll do a follow-up down the
Oh
road,
my
but
God,
I'm
that
so
would
glad when
be
I met
so
you in
fun.
person that here we are having this webinar today. So it was a really awesome opportunity.
Thank you. The community, guys. Community is huge, right? Like I had no idea like 7 months ago when I met Natasha would be here today. So you really have no idea what can happen. So but thank you so much everyone for attending our first webinar in January. We'll be announcing our February webinar next week. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you next time. Thanks everyone.
Great. Thanks. Bye, everyone. See you.
Bye.